Welcome to Policy on Demand Week in Review. I'm Pat Brown. Well, this week has been a little bit of a head on a swivel week for taxpayers. So on the one hand, there's been a lot of action in Washington, whether that's with respect to the bipartisan infrastructure discussions, which appear to be continuing to move forward. But also this week, we're starting to see more action around the Democrats trying to put together a budget, which of course will form the basis for a potential reconciliation bill likely to move forward later on this year. So that's just in Washington. Now, outside of the United States, of course, we've had a lot of action with respect to the OECD project, most recently, of course, with the G20 endorsement of the statement of principles that we saw from the inclusive framework, about a week and a half ago. So there's been a lot of action outside the United States as well that clients have had to digest. So it really has been a week where we've had to be focusing our attention in multiple places at once. So the question that I got asked most this week was, hey, now that there's an agreement at the OECD and that's been endorsed by the G20, does that mean that project is essentially done? It's really just now in a position to move forward to implementation. And the answer to that is no, not quite. What we actually have from the OECD and the G20 is really a statement of principles. It's a 5-page document. I think it's more akin to like a term sheet. And we have a great deal of work that has to be done now to iron out some of those principles and expand those concepts. Something that the OECD likes to call the details, I would really think of as more kind of structural design elements that have to be agreed. Some of those in the Pillar 1 space would include things like, how will one determine what is the seeding jurisdiction, the jurisdiction that seeds revenue over to market jurisdictions? What is the scope of this financial services carve-out in Pillar 1 that people have talked about? And in Pillar 2, of course, we have also really big questions to address, like the relationship between the rate, the minimum tax rate, and the base to which that tax will be applied. Of course, that relates to things like the scope of these carve-outs that we know are going to be part of any agreement that would move forward. In addition, we know where there's a lot that has to be done to deal with issues like timing differences in order to figure out the appropriate mechanism for applying a minimum tax. So the agreement has made enormous progress. The OECD has made enormous progress, and that should certainly be acknowledged, but there's a great deal more to go still. Well, I started off talking about head on a swivel, and that's going to start to change a little bit because we know that the OECD project is likely to enter into a period where it's relatively quiet over the course of the next few weeks. And the reason for that is really, as I mentioned, there's a lot of work that has to be done. But also, of course, we know that a lot of the delegates are going to be headed out on summer holidays, particularly, of course, in Europe. There will be a period now of summer holidays that will commence over several weeks. And as a result, there will not likely be a lot of action, at least not a lot of action for us to see over the next few weeks with respect to the OECD project. Not true in Washington. In Washington, there certainly will be action as we continue to see whether this bipartisan infrastructure package can move forward. And again, critically, what shape will the budget start to take? And what are the implications of that for companies as we look towards the fall and potential tax increases? So for the week upcoming, again, I think the attention is really going to now start to focus pretty much primarily back to Washington and what is going on in that space.